All right, we will go through a few different things on the upcoming council meeting for next week, and then pepper you with a few other updates and get your questions. So, first of all, a couple things you'll see notable on the agenda, if you haven't already, is the biggest change in terms of the airport. We're at the final stages of the bonding of the airport terminal expansion. We're shooting for no date certain yet, but we're shooting, I think, for a groundbreaking at some point in October for the start of that expansion project. The last logistical step is the approval of going to bond. The initial request was $100 million. It'll now be $150 million, but that is not because the project's gone to $150 million. It's just to provide us a little extra capacity with some rising costs and administrative costs. So we're expecting, not done yet, but we're expecting more in the ballpark of 107 to 112, something in that area. So just wanted to clarify with you, when you see a change from 100 to 150, and whether you look at any project that gets bonded, it's customary that it goes to a much higher number to ensure you're good. That doesn't mean that's the commitment to spend. So we're wrapping up design phase, and through all of that, it doesn't look like we're going to get anywhere near the 150 amount. It just has given us that extra comfort and extra layer. So there's a few different council items that pertain to that, but we're obviously excited. It's a long process. It takes about a year to get the full bonding procedure complete, and so we're glad to get this final step behind us and get going. The pallet shelter leases, there will be leases for the pallet shelters with both of the applicants who had applied for the RFP, which is REAP, Reentry Alliance Pensacola, and Offensive. So REAP proposes using 14 of the sleeper units, and then Offensive with 13 sleeper units and one of the hygiene units. So 28 units out. You guys remember this was an allocation of the ARPA funding that had already been earmarked for homelessness reduction. And so excited to have that. And I believe at least REAP, I don't want to leave Offensive out, but I know off the top of my head, REAP had also gotten some additional grant funding from other sources for some of the site prep. You know, these things have air conditioning, they have power, they have utility needs. So it's not a matter of just building something and putting it on the grass. There's some other site work that has to get done. And so we appreciate them going and getting some of that extra skin in the game to make sure that these units happen. So they were the only two that had submitted bids in March. And of course, we had the council approval of using it for these in December of 2024. Excuse me. Bay Bluffs Park, finally, there's the $2.2 million acceptance from DEP and Conservation Florida. So again, we've been waiting 8-9 months, all on the state side, and going through all of those logistics. I've certainly committing today, regardless of where we are. I'll tell you what the next step is for us. Regardless, we will in October have a first visioning listening session with the public on what they want to see at Bay Bluffs Park. Our ideal goal is that we would have a design consultant in place, and if this was LOST funds, if this was general funds, if this was funds that only had fingerprints of the city on them, we could absolutely do that and meet that timeline for October. The fact that these are state funds doesn't give us the same flexibility to use folks that we already have as qualified contractors, and that may require us to yet again RFP something because those are state dollars. Regardless, we are going to have that first listening session with our citizens in October. It's a long time coming, and the best case scenario is to have the consultant on board for that meeting. That doesn't mean that the meeting wouldn't have value if we didn't, but 2.2 million is not certainly going to build any large structure or anything like that, but we want to start hearing between primitive trails, pavilions, those types of things that these dollars are going to be able to support. We're excited to hear from the public on that, and I know they're just as excited to get this going as we are. So, and just a reminder, I know you guys know this, but for the public, that our agreement with FDEP and Conservation Florida requires that the Bay Bluffs Preserve be used as an outdoor recreational site in perpetuity for the use and benefit of the general public. So the acceptance of these dollars and the use of these dollars continues what our quest was, which is that this will stay in the public realm forever. So very excited for that. Latest on Baptist, I've had multiple conversations with Commissioner May and trying to work through something that we feel is makes sense for the county, that's beneficial for the city, beneficial for the community and the surrounding neighborhood. We've had conversations with Baptist about some additional outline parcels. At the end of the day, this has got to go, whatever proposal that Commissioner May wants to propose to the county commission, he has to do that. And so I hope that happens. But what I think the product of that, if we can get support and if Commissioner May can get support from his fellow commissioners, is yet again a regional community project that also would provide some value and some assurances to the community today and tomorrow in terms of what happens in and around the campus. So those have been good conversations. Certainly, I've appreciated having that and with the sitting commissioner of where Baptist Hospital is located. And so hopefully we'll be getting some good news on that soon. Cobb Center, a quick update there. We do have J. Green Construction Services here in Pensacola was the winning bid, and it came in under our $1.1 million budget allocation to get the outside envelope, those big critical areas where that building had started to go in disrepair, and not allow it to have the same fate where dollars were eroded from Malcolm Young and put it in the position that it was in. We were able to save this one, and this should be in front of council on September 25th. So good news, under budget, got somebody on contract, and we're going to stop the bleeding, so to speak, of the eroding building and get that shored up as soon as we can. Facilities also ready to move forward with the Portland Loo installations at both the skate park and MLK Plaza. So we are actually going to, you remember I mentioned to you guys a couple weeks ago, we would slot one MLK first if we needed to do one first. Good news is we won't need to do one first. We're going to do them both at the same time, and they will go under construction this month. So, and it will not be a long process. I haven't been given exact times, but we would think if they don't start till the end of September, we think no later than the end of November. So we would be surprised if it was anything more than 60 days in terms of when that start point. But it could also start earlier than the end of the month. We're working through it now, but we're at those final stages, and we're glad to finally get those in as well. A few delays on some of the drainage projects. Main Street is pushed from to September 26th by just a couple weeks. We had some of that rain come through, and when you got the ground cut up at that scale, that could certainly be a delaying factor. And as you may have seen last week, the project at 12th and Fairfield under the trees there was completed 3 weeks ahead of schedule, so that intersection is now open. So one's a couple weeks behind, one was a couple weeks ahead, but we are now open fully for traffic there at 12th and Fairfield. The airport, good holiday weekend numbers. We like to always take a look at these because they're good apples to apples from the year before. Pretty busy holiday weekend. So taking Thursday to Monday numbers, we had 51,750 passengers go through this year compared to 47,400 last year, a 9.2% increase in traffic for Labor Day weekend. And midday Saturday had all our parking lots at 95% full or higher. We also, next time you go to the airport, you'll see it. We've also put some increased technology. We had already online, we'd already been trying to give live updates on parking capacity. If you go out to the airport now, right when you take the right off of 12th Avenue, you'll now see an electronic sign that has parking capacity numbers of what's available at all of our lots. So you'll be able to see that digitally right there on the sign on the right. So that I think that's a good addition as well. And of course, you can go to the Fly Pensacola website. Recycling update, we have 3,300 now sanitation customers signed up for recycling, and our crews are pretty close to caught up on the can deliveries. So if you haven't signed up yet again, please do so, and it'll take about a week to get you your can. But we're up to 3,300, so good news there. And just one quick update on, I thought this was good. A big part of what Teresa's doing with child care access is the brunt of her time, but also trying to get some more internal operations, both with getting our employees engaged more in the community and working on the internship programs and shoring those up for opportunities for our youth locally. And that was one of the, I know in the mayoral transition team, that was one of the encouragements that we had gotten, was to just try to be better engaged in some of the youth programs. So we've seen a 22% increase in employees signed up with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and a 200% increase in city employees enrolled in the Ready Kids reading program. And so those are obviously programs that help our youth, and it certainly gives just that more connectivity amongst city employees, city staff, and the community at large. So just want to give them a shout out, and certainly appreciate our staff stepping up. That's not something they have to do, but to see that continued encouragement of having an impact beyond the walls of City Hall is encouraging for me. So that is everything I've got, and happy to take any questions you have.
Mayor.
Yeah.
The cost to, of course, the deadline for the mural to be removed is tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Any update from FDOT in terms of the cost of that project?
No update on cost. I know that there's been communication between FDOT's office and our Public Works office, which is the technical. That's who would be getting that communication. Certainly, I wouldn't be from a logistical standpoint. So all I'm aware of at this point is that I know that our Public Works team and FDOT has been communicating logistically on FDOT completing that work. So I don't have any timeline. I know September 4th is their deadline. I'm aware of that, but obviously that is in queue and is in process, and that's all I know at this point. But in terms of total cost, I just don't. We don't have that either.
And then just to follow up on that, you mentioned on the radio that there's a benefit of having FDOT do the work to make sure you're in compliance. Mm-hmm. Can you go into that?
Yeah, well, there's lots of rules. You can't make stop signs with 7 sides just because the city wants to. There's federal rules, state rules, and my position has been, if this is a state mandate, do you paint over the double lines? How far away do we have to close the road to the north, for example? Does it need to be closed within the state road? No one knows the compliance of the rules of the road in the state of Florida better than the Florida Department of Transportation. So that doesn't mean we couldn't figure it out, but when you're on a tight timeline to complete something, I think not only are they the most efficient in terms of manpower, they're the most efficient in terms of the rules of the road. So that's our position. And again, I know our teams are working amicably to get that mandate accomplished.
Mayor, on the airport, walk through, I'm a little confused on what the timeline is. You want to do ribbon cutting on the expansion. Does that mean that the design phase will be decided on, then the bond issue will be done, then you're going to do the ribbon cutting?
Right. I don't want to talk out of turn, and Matt might have to give you some better detail in terms of exact phases of design, for example. Right. But here's what I know. The ribbon cutting doesn't mean we break ground on Terminal B necessarily. Right. It might, for example, we've always maintained it'll start with the security area. Then it'll go over to where the gates might be. And so it's a multi-phase project, and so the first physical work will be starting with this in October, but which of course you wouldn't put a shovel in the ground without having certain aspects of it 100% designed, but I would have to defer to it. It may all be 100% designed, or it might be staggered in phases.
So will the bond issue will have already gone to market before then?
Again, let me make sure I'm clear. I don't want to say whether 107 million or 110 million would be in the house. I would have to, let me get Amy and Matt to get you some clarification on that. But I mean, I would say this, there's no plan to have a ribbon cutting in October and then have to have another one, for a different phase of the project. So I could safely say generally, that we expect to break ground and this be a 2 and a half, 2 year process of getting this project completed. That would be continuous, even though there's very, very many layers, and I do my best to grasp the enormity of a project. And I'll give a good anecdote. If you think about when you're in TSA line at our airport right now, you're on the second floor. You go up the escalator. For us to keep that open and to start building a new TSA area means we also might have to build some fake second floor of which to build that on so we can continue to operate. So, I mean, all of the luggage handling is happening on the first floor. Right. So, I mean, someone way, way smarter than me is figuring out how to continue to have our airport operate. And it actually really adds to a lot of the expense. It's not the nails and the wood and the bricks. It's all of the logistics to keep our airport operating and all of the added expenses you have to take on to be able to do that. So, but yeah, happy to get you some more detail exactly on all that phasing and timeline.
I have a similar follow-up question on that. Is the contract for that, has it been bid out as like a design build contract, or is the construction part going to be bid out separately?
Well, I know that the construction team's already in place. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, that's already been awarded. So obviously the designer's been working on this for quite a while, and then construction was selected. So, but yeah, we can get you extra details on that as well.
Mayor, I'm sorry. On Bay Bluffs, the listening sessions, does the city just get to decide how the $2 million is spent, or is that going to be Conservation Florida or some sort of collaboration?
We will be the primary decider, obviously, because of we are always doing aerobics of ensuring that dollars used are complied, right, or compliant with whatever particular project and whatever outlines that they have. So I don't mean that we can do absolutely anything we want. I'm sure there's some limitations in the language, but outside of those general limitations, then yeah, I think we are going to be the principal designer of it, and I say we as the community we're going to be the principal designers of that. But again, and I think what we would say in that first session is, listen, $2 million is not. There's not going to be a community center on the bluff, but what kind of mix of primitive trails do we have? What would you want on pavilions up top? Maybe there's lookouts that are ADA compliant, but most of it goes back to primitive trails that can stay forever. Having safety mechanisms within that, because you can't really see the road. So we don't want to give overpromise that there's this massive budget to do anything you want. So we can at least start to narrow that scope somewhat. But I think there's plenty of great ideas that are going to be out there about how people use it and how they want to use it, and so I'm excited to hear about it, because I do. Again, it's not a ton of money, but it's enough to have an impact depending on what you want to do.
The city's decision.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, unless there's a guideline that says we can't do something within the normal language.
And Mayor, we heard something along the lines of a submarine maker coming to the port. Can you talk about any of those discussions and if that has to do with the military?
No, I can't. I could tell you, we have interest at the port now, and we've had interest previously. Obviously, it's not in any way to be evasive. It's that there's commercial interest that are protected in these economic development situations that doesn't allow us, and certainly, we have law that backs that up, that doesn't allow us really to divulge that, because we don't want to get in the way of something happening. But what I can tell you vaguely is we've been very encouraged about the increased interest generally about the port with the American Magic project coming on, and I can tell you generally, not about any specific project, that our phones relatively have been ringing as frequently as they've ever been since I've been mayor here out of the port. So that's a good sign for us, and we'll see what can come to fruition and see what else is out there.
And another potential deal that you may not be able to go too much into. We heard the Grand Hotel may be sold or supposed to be sold. Can you talk about that? Any update with that?
All I can tell you from our, obviously it's private property, all I can tell you from our perspective is we've been approached by someone that is working with the property owner, and we've done exactly what we've said we would do, which is we'll entertain that conversation. Obviously, we've got some motivation and a vested interest in what happens in and around the Bay Center, as does the county and as does the community. So, we have those conversations and see where they go. But like many projects, we look at numbers proposed and we analyze them with our own teams or outside firms that can help us make sure that we're making good decisions. What the details of that are, you'd have to get with the property owner or whoever they're discussing. I wouldn't want to get, again, in front of or speak out of turn on anything that they are planning. But yes, we have been notified that there's some interest in it, and we've had some conversation, very preliminary conversation at this point about what that may look like.
Recent?
The last, testing my calendar, I'd say safely the last 45 days. Yeah.
Mary, the former House Speaker's filed to run for governor, and Hill's running for mayor.
Mm-hmm.
If you decided which one of those races you're going to get in?
Yeah, I figured I'd leave it to Rick for the creative way to get me to file. Listen, I think number one, I'm completely focused on keeping people safe at night here and all of these projects that we're talking about right now, so certainly not going to get into other people's platforms or races or anything at this point. I've told you before, I feel like this is an 8-year job. You see all these things that we just talked about today, and trying to see these things through that have been conversations already for a year, 2 years. These are big transformational projects for our city. So I'm hyper focused on that, and I would never expect if I'm going to run a re-election, I would never expect a job that's as important and as vital to the city as the mayor of the city of Pensacola to be run unopposed. I can say that. So
Ann
other
will have
people.
opposition is what you're saying?
What's that?
Ann will have opposition is what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, as of this moment, no. But listen, I know it will be couched as political cliche, and I appreciate that to a certain extent, but I do think about every day. I thought the election you were going to ask me about was my daughter was named class representative for her 6th grade class. That was yesterday. So I thought when you wanted to ask me about the hot topic in politics, I thought it was that. So yes, we were very ecstatic over that. But family is a big part of this, and I think I have enough respect for the people in my household, the people in my family, my friends that also kind of live vicariously through the ups and downs and the criticisms and the difficulties of this job. Sometimes I can handle it a little better than they can, as you can imagine. You get a little more calloused over, when you've been doing it a little bit longer. But I don't take for granted their support, and we've got a general idea of a timeline, and that if we're obviously considering it. I've told you I think it's an 8-year job, but anybody else's actions or activities within the race don't change our
So
our
January
process.
over or under?
I don't know. I don't know. That's
I can let you
I'm not
know.
gonna. I'm not. We'll see. Yeah,
Fair enough.
we'll see. It depends on when the next snowstorm is.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
maybe before that, maybe after that.
Let me follow up on that. You say it's an 8-year job. What would have to happen to make you not seek a second term? What would be the factor that if you decide not to seek a second term, what would that be?
Well, I think it all. Again, I don't take for granted the support system around me. In that, I love this job. I have a lot of heart and sweat invested into the projects that have taken place here. I think we're in a better place today than we were a year ago and 2 years ago, which is what you always hope when you're in this position. But again, I'm not going to let outside factors discredit the support structure around me, and that this is it really is a family decision. This is a family and friends decision that, doing this another 4 years is harder on some people than it is on me. And so I guess what I'm saying is I don't know that there's a, one factor. I mean, I don't know, getting hit by a bus when I walk out of here would be one. Other than that, I don't think there's one factor that I have in the back of my mind that say, how's my health? How does my family, feel about this? And I just, again, I'm not going to be rushed to therefore take for granted the other people that allow me to do this. There's lots of other, when you're raising a child and doing this, and you have, you have a family and you have friends. There's other people invested in this other than me, and so, we've kind of talked about that and when, around what time that we want to have happen. I'm not saying in any means that that we wouldn't, but I don't think it's fair to the folks around me to let outside activity, outside actions, anything else somehow speed up the conversations that we've promised we would have.
Maybe just a follow-up question on the mural.
Yeah.
Just looking back, the deadline is tomorrow. But you said you've been in contact with FDOT regarding that whole project.
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of satisfy the deadline that you're talking with them?
Yeah, I would think so. Just like any kind of, whether it was a contract negotiation or something, if it's the deadline set by FDOT. So if it goes a day late or 2 days late, I don't think they're gonna, since we're obviously in conversation with them, I would expect, if they hadn't heard from us or something like that, I could see there being some type of issue, but that's not the case. So but what their timeline is, when it's going to happen, what time, all of that stuff is in their court, other than I know they're just, again, working logistically with our Public Works Department to help get it done.
Bike lane near 9th Avenue included in that needs to be removed?
That was not on the list. I think you guys saw the same letter I got, so I think it was just identified as A Street. But if you want to give us another project, I guess you can send it to them. But that's the only one we're aware of is the one that we're talking about right now. So,
Mayor, you talked about your urge to bring some of these projects in for a landing here as best you can. On the CRA's website, they have all your redevelopment opportunities. There's a long list of them. All of them couched, as like you said, in their request for interest type of format.
Yep.
How would you evaluate that so far? Some of the properties on there range from the motel over here on Cervantes to the Malcolm Young property. Is that format working for the city, working for you? And can you give us a quick summary of what fish have gotten onto the hook here at this point?
So, I mean, I'll try to specific to those three.
996 South Palafox is on there, and I've never heard that mentioned before. Right by Plaza de Luna. Parcel down there where you... Yeah,
so there's some confusion. Let's talk about disposition first quickly. Disposition, and that was a request by the property owner where Jocko's is to add 300 square feet. It's not buildable. It's some of that green space area. This has come before council, I believe, already, but to expand a kitchen. That was like that request. It's not a buildable lot. It's not a building. It's not. It's but it goes on that list because there's the legal requirement that we have of disposition, and that's what caused some confusion, I believe, with some CRA members about the motor lodge. Is that regardless of what we decide, whether you sell it to the highest bidder or you want to turn it into affordable housing, if there's a potential sale of property, there has to be a 30-day notice of disposition by the city in any way, for any form of and so therein lies the point, is anything on that list, all of those may have different goals, different outcomes, and they all are on different timelines. I've just talked with Sam Young. We've got one more ball in the city attorney's court in terms of moving ahead with the units at Malcolm Young for the community land trust, and so we're very, very excited for that. So that should be happening. I don't have an exact date, but I know we are very far down that road. So excited to get those units in at scale. And the confusion on the motor lodge, I believe, is I want to reiterate this. The mission for the motor lodge is no different than what it was before it went to disposition. There's two different ways to do this, and you've heard me say before, I think, you can write a ground lease that's like a sale, and you can write a sale that's like a ground lease. So if you look at the Smith and Hinsey deal that we had under contract, contingent upon them getting tax credits, which anybody who's going to do affordable housing is going to need. If you look at that deal, they were paying back the price of the property over 17 years. It was going to be a format like that, presuming they got the credit. They did. Those are very competitive, as you guys know. They didn't get the credit. We can list the property for sale with the exact same contingencies that you must have housing at 60%, 80%. And I'm going to work directly with Councilman Wiggins on making sure that we're aligned on exactly what mix that he wants to see, and that being his district. And so before that comes back to CRA. And, is it 60, is it 80, is it both? And just understanding obviously the lower cost, the more subsidy it takes. But we can list the property for sale with the exact same contingencies we had in with a potential ground lease. And if they don't meet those requirements, it comes back to the city. So this is, to me, completely ministerial in terms of what it really allows us to do is, hey, go to a potential buyer and say, hey, you handle getting these tax credits while we take these funds and move it to something else. And if you aren't successful, then we can come take the property back. In my opinion, the only net change of these two things is it frees up administrative bandwidth to be going to work on the $5 million at Brownsville, the $5 million at South Marino, Baptist Hospital, all of these other great things happening in the West Side CRA. But where are we better than we are now? We had 2,300 calls for service there in 10 years, and now we don't. We have 0 calls for service. So we are absolutely from a public safety standpoint, in a massively better place than we've ever been since we closed on that property. And so we will continue to work forward on the motor lodge in that way. It will be protected and preserved as a potential as an affordable housing effort, and that we want to see as much scale and volume there as possible, just like we were doing previously. So simply all we're doing is going from the ground lease where we're handling all the admin to more of a sale with a big asterisk that says if it's not going to be meeting these metrics, then you can't buy it, or if you don't do what you say you're going to do, that we can take it back. So I think if you control property as a city, then you can help control the destiny and outcomes of these neighborhoods. And as you well know, before I got here, the city, and really still is extremely land poor. In terms of, there are many cities and many mayors I know where they've got the opposite problem. They've got so much foreclosed property and all of that where they're looking for ways to activate it, and they're desperate to go to the private market to find ways to activate for public safety reasons. We're kind of the inverse, but having 101 West Main, having the Malcolm Young property, Motor Lodge, Baptist, having all of this allows us to help in the next mayors. This is going to be a years-long process to have some say, make sure that the community has some say in the future of these particular neighborhoods. And so we're never going to shy away from the idea of being able to allow the city and its community to be able to have some influence on what happens in these neighborhoods, and not sit back and expect the private market and then get mad when the private market only builds market rate units. So, if we want subsidy, if we want affordable housing, we have to get involved. The city has an obligation to do so. And so I think that's what you're seeing with lots of those
What
projects.
assurances has Habitat given the city on the land trust proposal over at Malcolm Young? Do they have you signed any documents with them?
I'd have to, I don't want to speak. I don't have every document memorized over all these months of time. But what I can tell you is, we've got units at scale, going in. Obviously, like any project, there's stormwater things that we got to deal with. There's logistical, tons of paperwork going back and forth with ground leasing and all of that. So that's been a big part of what's taken some time. But I do know we're at in the light at the end of the tunnel phase. I'd have to get Jason, our staff, to get you. I'll get you whatever the latest and greatest document is. That if it's public record, happy to get that to you. But we've just had a lot of moving things. I don't want to tell you I signed this last week or last month. I'm not exact. All I know is I've talked to Sam directly yesterday about this and other projects, and everybody's very bullish on how things are going, including the completion of the 3 houses, the scattered site houses with HBA. That was a very successful project, and we were excited for that. That was a great event to help celebrate all of those contractors, subcontractors that really help make those 3 projects happen. So we're moving as quick as we can.
Any new news on lot 4 and 5 at the Maritime Park?
Yeah, I know that obviously lot 5 continues to progress. I've been in conversations with Harold Dawson and the team involved. I know that their intent is to change primary focus to lot 4, but with that comes lots that's got the most complexity of all, because if you build something on lot 4, then you got to replace a parking lot, and so we worked on lot 5 as the way to kick the can, so to speak, on solving parking. So doesn't mean we're against that we aren't that we don't want 4 developed or anything, but what I could say is we're in conversations. I know they're meeting with council members already and briefing them on what their vision is for 4. So certainly want to respect that process for them. But that's what I can tell you now, is that the priority has moved to 4. Obviously, Diane Hendricks and her team's investment in this project brings a ton of credibility, capital, reputation to this, both to 5 and potentially to 4, that I think is a good thing for its viability and for its chances of success. But again, I know there's multi-millions of dollars already invested in 5 by the current team, and we continue to see that move forward.
The design for 5 assumes that there will be extended over into the next parcel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Grand Plaza up on the community deck, I call
Right.
it.
Yep.
Do you think? I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what I could say, or willing to say, would be the proposal at 4 is a lower intensity use. It's not another tower. It might be. It's a lower intensity use closer to Main Street, and so whether they designed it that way to complement it or not, I don't know, but with the timing of us getting information about the plan on 4, and just purely the logistics of, okay, it's not just what are you going to do on 4 and do you have the money to do it. Now we got 350 parking spaces, we've got parking obligations already out there. What happens now? So it's a much more complex transaction. So I believe the team is going to be back in town. I know we're going to have a longer session with them at staff level next week and kind of work through that.
Have they asked you, city, to take an equity in whatever happens at 4 in terms of replacing parking?
Not at this point. I have directed the development team to present our staff with bring us proposals about what parking would or wouldn't look like. What is that? How it's financed? What that partnership is? So the ball's in their court to come to the city and say.
But you expect to hear more here pretty
I do.
soon here.
Yeah, I do. So, but again, I would designate the conversation about Parcel 4 as very preliminary in terms of from the development group to staff at this point. There's too many moving parts to say exactly what's going to happen and all that, but I'm looking forward to hearing more on that.
Mayor, I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. The city has a signed lease for lot 5
That's correct.
right now, and so you're saying the developers are in negotiations for lot 4 with the city at this point, and is.
Well, remember, the developers have held the options on
Right.
all of those parcels for a while now.
Right,
Yeah.
but they're not actively negotiating all those options into leases right now?
Correct. And what the normal process has been, previous to me, has been have the parcels under option, get to a term sheet, so we all understand each other, then work on the dotting of I's and crossing of T's in a lease. So that's been the normal 1, 2, 3. At this point, it's just options on all of those. And when you throw in term sheet and lease and the large complexity of shared parking and how you replace that shared parking, that leads to a longer runway and a longer conversation that we have just started. So again, we were notified, I don't know, 60, 90 days ago about this kind of move. We had actually initially thought maybe that the next move would be on 8, closer to the marina. They've pivoted to 4, which is fine. Just as we said, 4 adds, of all the parcels still remaining, 4 is the most complex because it's requiring the city to take action on handling a parking issue. And so, and there's other factors. There's staging for 5. Lots of materials that need to go sit somewhere. Somewhere on other parcels, and so just lots of details to work through. So we certainly in positive spirit or want to hear those conversations, but I really even have no opinion on it yet because we just don't have enough information on 4 to really, other than we've gotten the idea of the general vision, but we hadn't gotten to any brass tacks whatsoever on numbers and garage and everything else.
So the projects at Lot 5 are still moving
Correct.
forward? It's just now their next project, they're talking about Lot 4.
That's correct.
Lot 8.
That's correct. There is no contingency from our side of the table. I'm not going to speak for them on any of these details. There's no contingency or codependence that we're aware of. Parcel 5 has its own lease. It can be built as is. If we walked away from on every parcel, if the city walked away, there's no out clause to not do 5 because you didn't do 4, that type of thing. If you recall, 4 and 5 actually were under the same option previous to me. We split those out to do this project. So yeah, there's no codependence from the city's perspective. There's zero codependence on the completion success of 5 and the viability of 4 or the success of 4. So I'm sure the developers are going to say, well, they coexist together and they work together, or they wouldn't be doing them next to each other. But from a legal standpoint or a lease standpoint, as far as I'm concerned, we're full steam ahead with moving the 5 project forward. And as I said, what we can confirm is they are multi-millions of dollars invested into 5 at this point. So and they continue to be good on their timelines as far as we know.
Mayor, the city extended the Texas hotel developers up above Lot 5 up there, right? You extended their negotiation.
At 7, you're talking about Valencia at 7?
Valencia,
Yes.
You extended that on a fairly short timeline,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, well,
Is parking at 4 going to be part of that calculation?
Well, it used to be. The difficulty with 7 is its ability. If you go back in our Maritime Park history, I think one thing that wasn't maybe thought through, or maybe it just wasn't a big priority in the development at the time, is when you do these projects, self-parking these projects are pretty important. I mean, if you're going to have a hotel or you're going to have apartments, you don't want to have to walk 4 blocks. I don't see a lot of apartment builders building parking lots 4 blocks away, 3 blocks away from the actual development. And so I don't know how much of the original master plan or modifications to that plan surmised the need to self-park these. But one of the issues with 7 is the original proposal, which again predates me, but the original proposal doesn't have any self-parking on 7. It has the structure on 7, which means you got to go find the parking somewhere else. So we still haven't for months had any disagreement or delta with Valencia on the project, on lease rates, on fees. It's been, how do we find the amount of parking that they need and that their banks would need to be able to finance it, knowing that they have enough spaces for their hotel guests. So we've been trying our best to work with the existing parking lot leaseholders, so to speak, like the Maritime Place and Wahoo's, and how do we squeeze out spaces and things like that. And then there's these other things that come in play, like staging for 5, like the proposal at 4. So in our perfect world, we would have some level of podium self-parking on 7 in our perfect world, but I'm not a developer and I can't tell you if that pencils or not. If building a concrete podium, which I think would be good for insurance and things like that, is not in the cards and something that makes it penciled, and again, they would have to speak to that. So, but you can kind of see it's hard to treat all of these independently because really every single proposal we have at Maritime has some reverberating impact on the remaining parcels. And so that's why we're doing the best we can to navigate these and try to make them successful and make it something that the city and the community want. But it's not as clean as selling a parcel or ground leasing a parcel and they start to build.
Any discussions regarding that old medical center building on Palafox?
No, not at this point. Again, we were very extremely crystal clear that I was not going to bring something to our city council that we had not been in, and my feeling is, so all of that through the negotiation, all of that, I mean, that had never changed. It's in writing multiple times, and the hesitancy to allow the city to go in the building before the expectation of being paid is the fundamental basis of real estate, I believe. As a matter of fact, it had been listed for sale, and there had been realtors that had already taken other people through the building with no offer or no anything. So the shadiness of that action tells you all you need to know. If we can't buy the building from you because you're worried about what we're going to see when you go in it, just tells you what you need to know. So it's unfortunate that our city attorney staff time and our staff time had to be wasted on something that had already been clearly delineated. But that's why we go, and it's why we don't go to council, as one council person had suggested, that we go to council and mention when we're interested in buildings. It never went to council because we didn't have something that I felt like I could sign my name to. And so we've got to go do some work administratively. It doesn't mean we're leaving people out of the loop or that council members aren't important parts of making these transformational things happen. But the reality is, when it comes to doing some of these things, we've got to prime the pump to bring something to council of which they are the authority on, and that's on the budget, on ordinances, things like that. And so our administration, our staff, we don't like wasting time, and we spend a lot of time. There's been many people over the years trying to get this building under control, and these are out-of-state owners, and I certainly don't appreciate the way that was handled. So hopefully someone else can find better success than us. I know that they continue to accrue fines at a significant rate daily, as they were before. Got to be approaching close to $100,000 now, and certainly we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so no other progress other than what you already
Any
know.
indication of why they won't let you guys in there? Like, what are they worried that you'll find?
I don't think that they'll tell us that. I wouldn't assume that it's something physical. I think it's negotiating a price blindly, which happens all the time. We'd say, hey, we'd be willing to pay this if assumptions we're making are accurate. If they aren't, then the price is going to change. So I wouldn't say that it's something literal that we would find. I think it's more of, would you like to buy what's behind the curtain? And the answer is no. I'd like to buy seeing what's behind the curtain. And I'm not bringing to council a proposal of us to go under contract in any way with someone not willing to allow us to see what's behind the mystery curtain. We're not going to do that. So as much as I think that would be such an amenity for not only the Hollis 2 Williams project, but for the city, it's the flagship of commercial blight in our city. And that's why, why we have across our city upped commercial code enforcement violations. It's been a nuisance on the surrounding neighborhood. They continue to not live up to all of the requirements of the fencing, of the security of the building. We get reports of seeing people on the roof, all of those things. So kind of like Motor Lodge, we talk about, things eventually become kind of a public safety nuisance. I'm not saying that this building's to that level yet, but I just mean, kind of like when you take no action, now you're putting the burden on our public safety bandwidth, our community, to solve your problem for you, and that's certainly frustrating. So we'll, again, obviously we'd be open to, any type of conversation, but guaranteeing people money before we look at something is not something I'm ever signing our citizen up for. I can guarantee that.
On that, the county has torn down, abandoned hotels before because they were public safety nuisances.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, what point does the city even have that power, and at what point will it get to that level?
For the hospital,
Yeah.
you're talking about? Yeah, well, obviously we would, look into that, and what meets our code. I can tell you code enforcement as a whole, some of the big changes we've made in the last couple of years is, I think some of our ability for, where we would see this more common, Jim, would be like someone owning a house, they load up all of these code enforcement fines, and then they sell the house, and then even if the owner knows that those fines are on it, they say, well, we'll take our chances going and say, well, mayor, council, waive these fines because it wasn't us, and we're going to build this nice house. And I believe, you'll have to confirm this, I believe our county, and I know other counties, but I think our county, had a more fair, more strict policy, which is that those can follow you to other parcels, meaning and that you can't just sick them on the person that's trying to do good, because it puts us in a completely unfair position, puts the council in an unfair position to say, all right, our two options are not allow this person to build something and make them pay the code enforcement fines of which they are aware, or do what's in the greater good of the city, which is take a blighted, abandoned building that's dragging down our city or that particular neighborhood, and then let it continue to fester. And that's an unfair position to put leadership in. And think about the guys on the ground, the code enforcement folks that have met with these people and told them about fines, and they aren't treated. They're always the most respectfully when they have to go do these things at the door. And so I think from a morale standpoint, if I'm a code enforcement officer and the mayor is willing to just be waiving fines, left and right all over the place flippantly, I think that kind of spits in the face of the effort that code enforcement makes, which is, hey, these are our rules, and we understand finding. I think all our code enforcement guys, Ryan does a great job. I think they understand the happy medium of what's good for the community versus holding someone's feet to the fire. But we have attempted and are in current progress to continue to revamp codes to have on the code enforcement side that allow those things to not slip through the cracks, as well as, again, the commercial fines going up significantly from where they were when I got here. So we're trying our best to be able to do that. What I tell you with that building in particular and the length and amount of time that it's been, certainly that's a city attorney question, but we would explore and entertain whatever remedies and avenues that we would have to not have another 10, 12, 15 years of commercial blight sitting on Palafox Street. I mean, to answer that question generally.
Do these people, are they gaining anything by having this property sit there? I can't imagine someone accruing
You'd have to ask them. You'd have to ask them. I know our city isn't, but you'd have to ask them. Yeah.
Mayor, on Baptist Hospital, you said last month or so ago that August would be kind of the, if you didn't get an answer by the end of August, you would take that as a no from the county, and it sounds like there's still, I don't believe it's on the commission's agenda tomorrow. That may have changed, but I guess it's the county. You said you've had good talks with Commissioner May, but I mean, at what point is the city able to get other options?
The delay in that has been, again, and that wasn't some date we picked out of the sky. We have a donation agreement that's got a deadline with 2 extensions on it. So I just want to be clear. It isn't like that wasn't supposed to be a directed ultimatum that the mayor's just made up. It's that we quite literally will have an expired donation agreement. And we have a bid that has an expiration date on it. We've got, we can't just keep a bid for demolition for a year. There's some, us needing to move as quick as possible is not just some avenue of creating urgency for the county commission. All I ask is take the vote. I mean, just take the vote. If it loses 3-2 or it loses 4-1, I maintain, I respect that. I have to respect that. It's their government. It's what they see as, if they don't see Baptist as a priority project for the county, I would disagree with that personally, but that isn't my decision to make. That's, is their decision to make to support it in the beginning, and it's their decision to make to decide to not support it if that's where it goes. I've been more silent on that delay because I've been working directly with Commissioner May and understand, I think he's had lots of good insight on where this project can create community value for the county as well. And so that's why, again, yes, we remain under the same, those timelines haven't changed. I mean, we remain under the same timelines, but, we're just pushing it to the 11th hour and 45th minute because we feel like if this is the way that we can have a chance of success, try to bring some potential healthcare outcomes, some community access outcomes with some of the outlying parcels, and that's a three-way conversation with Baptist, with the county. I never know how the county agendas work, if something ends up being on there or not. But I will say, and I've mentioned this to Commissioner Met. My hope is, and I think our discussion has been, that he brings something forward as the sitting commissioner in that group that makes sense to him, and protects the interests of his county members and something that he can get behind. And so I've worked closely with him. Baptist has worked. All three of us have worked on something that we think is good. Certainly that's due to his work as well, and I hope that he can bring a proposal that is something he feels like can get across the finish line to his colleagues. I had mentioned to him, if it's on this agenda, I don't plan on being there. I don't think Baptist plans on being there. Let me say preemptively, that's not out of protest, right? We've kind of said what we've needed to say. I mean, I think everybody knows what our position is, and so that's not out of because we don't support the idea. But I think, hey, this is their business to do, right? At the end of the day, the same way it's the city council's business to vote on or up or down whatever they have. So, I think they know where everybody stands, and again, I've appreciated hearing Lumen's perspective and him advocating for his district the same way that we're advocating for our city and our neighborhoods. And those are the same thing. At the end of the day, two governments, and we're talking about the same people. And so hopefully he can bring something forward that's palatable. And if not, we're on a short timeline. I hope this is happening this week, but if not, then we'll decide our next move from there.
How long is the demolition bid good for, and then how much notice do they need to be, because I feel like expires in a week, but they don't have time to deploy their equipment or whatever.
Yeah.
What's the
I don't want to misquote that. Let me get you an answer. I think it's not written as succinctly as noon on October blank or November blank. I don't think it's that. I think it might be a week. It might be by the end of this month. I just don't know. That's an Erica question, what the exact date is. But what we know from every project we ever do is, there's absolutely some expiration on, trust me, if there wasn't, I'd start bidding projects right now for 5 years from now just so I could pay the 5 years ago price, But that's why they expire, is that at some point these contractors can't honor the price of labor, price of goods, all that stuff. So let us, we can work on getting you an exact date. I don't believe it's that. I think it's some type of month time frame or week, a couple week type of time frame in the way it's written, but I could be wrong. Let me get you an answer on that.
Mayor, one more thing on the Maritime Park parcels. Is Andrew Rothfeder still repping the city on some of those parcels, or is economic development here at City Hall now taking?
No, yeah, and Andrew's representing us on these parcels at this point, yeah. Again, I think our full focus right now is vetting out this proposal at 4. And again, I appreciate the proactivity of the development team getting around to council. This is a joint decision. This is not the mayor's decision of what goes there. This is a long talked about project, and it's got to be something that we're all behind. So it certainly helps that effort that they're getting proactive, meeting with council members, getting their ideas and feedback. It's been great to have Marina Corey at DPZ. She continues to be involved, including on 4, giving feedback.
Carol's paying her bill, right?
I think we are, actually. I think as a representative of the city, meaning we felt that if they're representing our interests at the West Main Plan, that you wouldn't want someone representing the interests of the city being paid by the opposite side of the table. So, but she's been great in giving us those intermittent updates, and we appreciate the developer keeping her included in all of that. Because remember, when we talked about 5 the first time, some of the conversation was concern around West Main, and we said every other parcel, let's just continue to make sure that the person who authored that plan was at the table. And so, so she's been great giving us updates and giving them feedback, and they've responded to that. Anything else? All right, guys, thanks so much.